My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm 32 years old. 5 years ago, my parents erased me from their lives for having a child out of wedlock. Last month, I received an invitation to my sister's engagement party, with one condition. I had to pretend to be a distant friend, not their daughter. What happened at that party changed everything, and the inheritance that followed? Well, that's a story you won't believe. Before I share what went down in that ballroom, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy stories about family justice and setting boundaries. I love hearing from viewers around the world, so drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, let me tell you about the day I walked into that five-star hotel, carrying a secret that would shatter my parents' perfect facade. I hadn't seen them in 5 years. They'd made their choice clear when I was 27 and pregnant: disappear or terminate. I chose my daughter. They chose their reputation. But sometimes, life has a way of serving justice when you least expect it. Let me take you back to where this all started. 5 years ago, I was 27, working at a law firm and dating someone I thought was the one. When I found out I was pregnant, I was scared but excited. I pictured telling him over dinner. Maybe he'd cry happy tears. We'd start planning our future together. Instead, he packed his bags that same night. "I'm not ready for this," he said, and just like that, he was gone. No forwarding address, blocked number, complete vanishing act. I sat in my parents' living room the next day, shaking. Mom's face went white when I told her. Dad set down his newspaper with that slow, deliberate motion that meant a storm was coming. "You have two choices," he said, his voice cold as January rain. "Fix this mistake, or leave this family forever." Fix this mistake, that's what he called my daughter. Mom sat there, twisting her wedding ring. Think about Jessica's future. What will people say when her sister is an unwed mother? The Winstons would never accept that. The Winstons. Even then, before Jessica had met Marcus Winston, my parents were already grooming her for high society marriage. And I was the stain that could ruin it all. "I'm keeping my baby," I said. Dad stood up. "Then you're no longer our daughter. Don't contact us. Don't come to family events. As far as anyone knows, we have one daughter, Jessica." The last thing I saw was Mom closing the door, not meeting my eyes. I was 7 months pregnant, suddenly orphaned by living parents, with nothing but my savings and a determination to prove them wrong. While I was counting pennies for prenatal vitamins, Jessica was getting her third car for her 23rd birthday. A white Mercedes, because the red BMW didn't match her spring wardrobe. That's the text she sent me, before Dad found out we were still talking and made her block me too. Jessica had always been the golden child, but after I left, she became their entire universe. Private tennis lessons, spa weekends with Mom, a credit card with no limit. She graduated from her expensive private college debt-free, while I was taking night classes at community college, Emma sleeping in a carrier beside my desk. The inequality wasn't new, but the complete erasure? That cut deep. Family Christmas cards went out calling Jessica their beloved only child. My childhood bedroom became Jessica's walk-in closet. Every photo of me disappeared from the house like I'd been photoshopped out of existence. Emma grew up asking questions I couldn't answer. "Why don't I have grandparents like Lucy?" she'd ask after play dates. "Did they die?" "No, sweetheart, they just live far away." "Can we visit them?" "Maybe someday." But there was one person who never forgot us. Grandma Dorothy, Dad's mother, would secretly send birthday cards to Emma through my law office, small checks tucked inside with notes. "For my great-granddaughter, love always, Gigi Dorothy." She was the only family who acknowledged Emma existed. When other relatives asked about me at gatherings, my parents would say I was traveling abroad or focusing on my career elsewhere. But Grandma Dorothy knew the truth. She always knew. And as it turned out, she'd been planning something all along. Those first years were brutal. I worked 3 jobs while pregnant. Paralegal by day, tutoring in the evenings, weekend shifts at a call center. Emma came 2 weeks early, and I drove myself to the hospital alone. But holding her for the first time, everything made sense. This tiny person needed me, and I'd move mountains for her. I went back to work 10 days postpartum because I couldn't afford more time off. My neighbor, Mrs. Smith, watched Emma for half the usual rate because she remembered being young and struggling. I studied for the bar exam during Emma's naps, law books balanced on the breast pump, highlighting cases between diaper changes. It took me 3 years to finish law school part-time, but I did it. Passed the bar on my first try. The day I got my results, I sat in my beat-up Honda, Emma in her car seat eating goldfish crackers, and just sobbed. We'd made it. I specialized in family law, specifically custody and inheritance cases. Every case I won for an abandoned mother felt like a small victory for us. My colleagues called me the bulldog because I never let go once I bit down on injustice. By the time Emma was 7, I'd built something solid. We had a small apartment, but it was ours. Emma went to a good public school. I was junior partner at a respected firm. We didn't need my parents' money or their approval, or so I thought. Then Grandma Dorothy died, and everything I thought I knew about standing on my own 2 feet was about to change. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't living well, it's inheriting everything. The cost of silence was measured in Emma's tears. "Mommy, why don't I have grandparents like other kids?" became a monthly question, usually triggered by school events. Grandparents' Day was the worst. I'd take off work to attend, pretending to be enough for both sides of her family tree. "Lucy's grandma taught her to knit," Emma said one evening, holding up a classmate's scarf. "And Jake's grandpa takes him fishing every weekend." Each word was a knife twist. My daughter was paying for my parents' pride. The psychological toll went deeper than missed fishing trips. Emma started creating elaborate stories about her grandparents. "They're secret agents," she told her teacher. "That's why they can't visit." The school counselor called me, concerned about Emma's fantasy coping mechanisms. I tried filling the gaps. I taught myself to knit from YouTube videos, bought a cheap fishing rod and learned to bait hooks despite hating worms. But I couldn't be everyone, and Emma knew it. 3 months before the engagement party invitation arrived, I got a strange call. Marcus Thompson, introducing himself as Dorothy Mitchell's attorney. "Your grandmother wants to see you," he said. "Privately, she's at St. Mary's Hospital." I hadn't seen Grandma Dorothy in 5 years either. Dad had forbidden her from contacting me. But she was dying, and suddenly, his rules didn't matter to her anymore. "Bring Emma," she whispered when I arrived. "I want to meet my great-granddaughter properly before—" She didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. We both knew time was running out. What I didn't know was that she'd already set wheels in motion that would change everything. Grandma Dorothy looked so small in that hospital bed, but her eyes were sharp as ever. She held Emma's hand while my daughter chattered about school, and I saw tears slip down her weathered cheeks. "You look just like your mother did at your age," she told Emma. Then to me, "Sarah, I need to tell you something, alone." After the nurse took Emma for a juice box, Grandma gripped my hand with surprising strength. "I've watched your parents these 5 years. Watched them erase you like you never existed. It's unconscionable." "Grandma, it's okay." "No, it's not." Her voice was fierce. "I built that company with your grandfather. I bought that house, and Robert thinks it's all his because I let him manage it? He's about to learn differently." She glanced at the door, then back to me. "I've changed my will. Marcus Thompson has everything. Your parents don't know yet. Grandma, I don't want to cause trouble. Justice has its own timeline, my dear." She smiled, but it was sharp. "I won't be around to see it, but you'll have what you deserve, what Emma deserves." She died 3 weeks later. My parents didn't tell me about the funeral. I found out from her obituary online. They'd listed Jessica as the only grandchild, but Marcus Thompson called me the day after. Your grandmother left specific instructions, he said. Everything is to be revealed at a family gathering. She wanted witnesses. I thought I'd have to wait years for the right moment. Then, 2 months later, that engagement party invitation arrived. The perfect stage for Grandma's final act. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom looked like something from a magazine. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, and 200 of the city's elite mingling with champagne. I stood at the entrance in my best black dress, the invitation clutched in my hand while my stomach churned. Sarah? Jessica appeared in a cloud of expensive perfume and white silk. You came. Thank you for agreeing to the terms. The terms. Pretending I was nobody, just a college friend from her art history class. Please, just for today, don't make a scene, she whispered, glancing nervously at our parents across the room. They were holding court near the Winston family, Dad's booming laugh echoing off the walls. I noticed how they deliberately avoided looking my way. Like if they didn't acknowledge me, I couldn't hurt them. Mom's hands fluttered nervously whenever she turned in my direction, her radar still attuned to my presence after all these years. The Winstons are very traditional, Jessica continued. If they knew about the situation, Marcus might call off the engagement. The situation. That's what I'd become. I tucked my purse, containing a manila envelope that would change everything, under my arm. Don't worry, Jess. I know my role. Marcus Winston approached, all perfect teeth and inherited confidence. You must be Jessica's friend. How wonderful you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, I said, shaking his manicured hand. Behind him, his parents surveyed the room like generals reviewing troops. Mrs. Winston's diamonds could fund Emma's college education. Mr. Winston was already discussing business with Dad, both men radiating the casual arrogance of generational wealth. If only they knew what was coming. The speeches started after the second course. Dad stood up, tapping his champagne glass, that practiced smile spreading across his face. The room quieted, 200 faces turning toward the head table. Friends, family, distinguished guests, he began, his voice carrying that authority that used to terrify me as a child. Patricia and I couldn't be prouder today. Our daughter, our only daughter, has found her perfect match in Marcus. Only daughter. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Mom nodded along, her smile never wavering. Jessica has been our greatest joy for 28 years. We've been blessed with one perfect child who has never disappointed us. I pulled out my phone, started recording. Just for documentation, I told myself, not revenge, justice. Mrs. Winston leaned toward Mom. You must have been so lonely with just one child. Harold and I always say Marcus needed siblings. Oh no, Mom laughed, that tinkling fake sound I remembered from country club lunches. One was quite enough for us. We poured all our love into Jessica. No other children then? Mr. Winston asked Dad. No sons to carry on the family business? Jessica is all we need, Dad said firmly. She's been the sole focus of our lives since the day she was born. I noticed Aunt Helen at a nearby table, shifting uncomfortably. She knew the truth. So did 3 other cousins who kept glancing between me and my parents. But nobody said anything. The Mitchell family had closed ranks, as always. I quietly opened my purse, checking the envelope was still there. Marcus Thompson would arrive soon. The charade was almost over, Mrs. Winston's attention suddenly fixed on me. Excuse me, dear, she called across the table. You're Jessica's friend? Sarah, was it? You look remarkably like the Mitchells. Are you perhaps a cousin? The entire table turned to stare. Mom's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Oh, that's just Sarah, Mom said quickly, her voice pitched too high. She's an old friend of Jessica's from college. No relation. How strange, Mrs. Winston persisted. The resemblance is quite striking. The same eyes, the bone structure. Dad cut in smoothly. People always say Jessica has one of those faces that seems familiar. Sarah probably gets that too. I stood up slowly, my heart hammering but my voice steady. Actually, Mrs. Winston, you're very perceptive. Sarah, don't, Jessica started. I have something important to announce, I continued, projecting my voice so the nearby tables could hear. Several phones appeared, sensing drama. Mom's face had gone pale. This isn't the time. When would be the time, Patricia? I asked, using her first name deliberately. When you've successfully married Jessica off without the Winstons knowing the truth. Security, Dad barked, but I kept going. Mrs. Winston asked about the family resemblance, I said, addressing the room now. Multiple cameras were recording. There's a very simple explanation for that. The ballroom had gone silent except for the faint clink of silverware someone had dropped. Mr. Winston looked between me and my parents, his expression darkening with suspicion. "What's going on here?" he demanded. I reached into my purse for the envelope. "I think it's time everyone knew exactly who I am." Before I could pull out the envelope, the ballroom doors opened with perfect theatrical timing. Marcus Thompson walked in, briefcase in hand, his presence commanding immediate attention. He was the kind of lawyer who charged $1,000 an hour and looked worth every penny. "My apologies for the interruption," he said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "I'm Marcus Thompson, attorney for the late Dorothy Mitchell's estate." Dad shot up from his chair. "This is a private event. You need to leave." "I'm here at the deceased's explicit request," Marcus continued, walking toward the head table. "Mrs. Dorothy Mitchell specified her will be executed at the next family gathering with witnesses present. This qualifies." The Winston family exchanged confused looks. "Robert, what is this about?" Mr. Winston demanded. "Mother's estate was settled months ago," Dad said, but sweat was beading on his forehead. "The preliminary estate, yes," Marcus said, setting his briefcase on an empty table. "However, Mrs. Mitchell executed a new will 2 weeks before her passing. One you weren't informed about, Mr. Mitchell." He pulled out a thick legal document and a tablet. "She also left video testimony to accompany the reading. She was quite specific about the circumstances of its revelation." Mom grabbed Dad's arm. "Robert, make him leave." "I'm afraid that's not possible," Marcus said calmly. "Sarah Mitchell has power of attorney in this matter." Every head swiveled toward me. The cameras kept recording. "Furthermore," Marcus added, connecting the tablet to the ballroom's AV system, "Mrs. Mitchell insisted this be public. She said, and I quote, 'My family has kept too many secrets. Time to let in the light.'" The massive screen behind the head table flickered to life. Marcus adjusted the volume while Dad strode toward him, face purple with rage. "This is not the time or place." "Your mother specifically chose this venue, Mr. Mitchell," Marcus interrupted smoothly. "She knew about the engagement party. She wanted, quote, 'the whole family and their society friends present.'" Jessica looked like she might faint. "Sarah, please. My wedding—" "Grandma knew this day would come," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She knew you'd all gather to celebrate the perfect family. She wanted everyone to know the truth." Mrs. Winston stood up. "Perhaps we should postpone—" "With respect, ma'am," Marcus interjected. "This will only take a few minutes, and I believe you'll want to hear this, considering your son's engagement to the family." The screen showed Grandma Dorothy in her hospital bed, looking frail but fierce. The timestamp showed it was 3 weeks before her death. "If you're watching this," her recorded voice filled the ballroom, "then I'm gone, and my son is still living his lie." Mom sank into her chair. The relatives who knew the truth looked away. The ones who didn't leaned forward. "Before we begin," Marcus announced, "I should note that everything revealed here has legal implications for the Mitchell estate, valued at approximately $2 million, not including the family home and business holdings." That got everyone's attention. Money always does. Dad made one last attempt. "This is harassment. I'll have your license." "Your mother was of sound mind, Mr. Mitchell. I have 3 doctors' testimonies. Now, shall we proceed?" The video began to play. Dad wasn't going down without a fight. Before Grandma's video could continue, he grabbed the microphone from the DJ stand. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. This woman," he pointed at me, is disturbed and has been harassing our family for years. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mom stood beside him, nodding frantically. She's always been troubled. We tried to help her, but some people can't be saved. Security! Dad barked at the venue staff. Remove this person immediately. Two security guards started toward me, but Marcus stepped between us. Gentlemen, Ms. Mitchell is here legally as a beneficiary of the estate. Removing her would be unlawful. She's causing a disturbance at my daughter's engagement, Dad shouted. Jessica remained frozen, staring at her champagne glass. Not defending me, but not attacking either. Just silent, as always. The only disturbance, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos, is the truth interrupting your lies. Aunt Helen suddenly stood up at her table. Oh, for God's sake, Robert, just tell them who she is. Helen, don't, Mom warned. But other relatives were standing too. Cousin Michael, Cousin Grace. People who'd been forced to pretend I didn't exist at every family gathering for 5 years. This is ridiculous, Mr. Winston declared. Robert, if you can't control your event— She's nobody, Dad insisted, but his voice cracked. Just a former employee with delusions. Nobody? I pulled out my driver's license, held it up. Sarah Mitchell, same last name. Want to explain that coincidence? The security guards backed off, confused. The cameras kept rolling, and on the screen behind us, Grandma Dorothy's frozen image waited patiently for her moment. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family or had to fight for recognition you deserved, you'll understand what happens next. Before we continue, if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button. It really helps others find these stories. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to stand up to family in public? Now, let's see how Sarah changes everything. I didn't move an inch, even as the security guards hovered nearby. My voice remained steady, professional, everything my law training had prepared me for. I'm here as the beneficiary representative of Dorothy Mitchell's estate, I announced, pulling out the legal documents. Mr. Thompson has already verified my identity and standing. Marcus nodded, holding up his own paperwork. Ms. Mitchell has full legal authority in this matter. Any attempt to remove her would constitute interference with estate execution. This is absurd, Dad sputtered, but he was losing ground. Mr. Winston stepped forward, his business instincts kicking in. Robert, what exactly is going on here? Who is this woman? She's— Dad started, then stopped, trapped between lies and consequences. I'm happy to explain, I said, maintaining eye contact with Mr. Winston. But first, I think we should hear what Grandma Dorothy had to say. After all, she owned most of what your future in-laws claim as theirs. That landed like a bomb. Mrs. Winston's eyebrows shot up. Owned? The Mitchell family home, the business seed money, the investment portfolio, Marcus listed calmly. All originally belonged to Dorothy Mitchell, inherited from her late husband, and managed by Robert Mitchell as trustee. Managed, I emphasized. Not owned. Mom was whispering frantically in Dad's ear. Jessica looked between her parents and Marcus, finally understanding the stakes. I demand you leave, Dad tried once more, but his voice had lost its authority. Actually, Robert, I said, using his first name like he'd used mine all those years ago, I have every right to be here. More right than you might think. The screen flickered. Grandma was about to speak. The ballroom split like the Red Sea. Half the guests moved closer, phones raised, sensing the social media moment of the year. The other half shifted uncomfortably, old money instincts telling them to distance themselves from scandal. This is ridiculous, one of Dad's golf buddies declared. Robert, call the police. But Aunt Helen spoke louder. Let her speak, Robert. 5 years of this charade is enough. You knew? Mrs. Winston asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. We all knew, Cousin Michael said, standing up. We've been forced to pretend Sarah doesn't exist at every holiday, every funeral, every— Michael! Mom shrieked. You promised. I promised when I thought it was temporary, he shot back. Not half a decade of erasing a human being. The crowd murmured. pieces clicking together. Jessica's friend from college who looked exactly like the family. The daughter they claimed was only children. The math was simple. Mr. Winston's face had gone cold. Robert, I'll ask once more. Who is this woman? Dad opened his mouth, but no words came. The lifetime of lies had finally caught up, and he couldn't find another one to save him. The truth has waited 5 years, I said, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. It can't wait anymore. I opened the manila envelope, pulling out a birth certificate, family photos from before my exile, and a court document. These are my credentials, Mr. Winston. Would you like to see them? Marcus pressed play on the video. I think Mrs. Mitchell Sr. would like to answer that question herself. Grandma Dorothy's voice filled the room, and there was no stopping her now. I stood straighter, looked directly at the Winston family, then addressed the entire ballroom. I'm Sarah Mitchell, Robert and Patricia's eldest daughter. The room exploded. Gasps, dropped glasses, chairs scraping as people stood for a better view. Mrs. Winston's hand flew to her pearls. The daughter they erased 5 years ago, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. The one they disowned for having a child out of wedlock. You have a grandchild? Mr. Winston turned to my parents, his voice dangerous. I pulled out my phone, showed Emma's picture on the screen. Emma Mitchell. She's 8 years old, their granddaughter they've never met. This is a lie, Dad started, but I cut him off with photographs. Family Christmas, 2016. I held up the photo. There I am, pregnant, still part of the family. And here, another photo, is the last family portrait before they kicked me out. Notice anyone missing from Jessica's engagement photos? The evidence was undeniable. Same eyes, same bone structure, standing between my parents in dozens of family photos spanning 27 years. They gave me an ultimatum, I said, addressing the cameras now, knowing this would go viral. Abort my baby or lose my family. I chose my daughter, they chose their reputation. Jessica finally found her voice. Sarah, please. I've been nobody for 5 years, Jess. A ghost at every holiday, a stranger at Grandma's funeral. Did you tell Marcus you had a sister? Or was I erased from your history too? Marcus Winston looked at his fiancée with something between betrayal and disgust. You said you were an only child. The perfect family facade was crumbling, and everyone was watching. Grandma Dorothy's face filled the screen, her voice clear and condemning despite her frail appearance. If you're watching this, then my son Robert has continued his shameful charade. I'm Dorothy Mitchell, and I need to set the record straight about my family. Dad reached for the AV controls, but Marcus blocked him. Sir, interfering with a will reading is a felony. Grandma continued. 5 years ago, my son and daughter-in-law committed an unforgivable act. They disowned their eldest daughter, Sarah, for choosing to keep her baby. They called her a disgrace, a stain on the family name. The camera panned slightly, showing medical equipment. I'm dying as I record this, but I couldn't leave this world without justice for Sarah. She raised that beautiful child alone, put herself through law school, became someone remarkable without a penny of family help. Tears ran down Mom's face. Dad stood frozen, his authority evaporating with each word. Meanwhile, Robert and Patricia lived in my house, ran the business I built with my husband, enjoyed wealth they didn't earn while denying their own daughter existed. Grandma's eyes blazed with the fury of the dying. They told everyone Jessica was their only child, made family members lie, banned Sarah from my birthday parties, from Christmas, even tried to keep her from my deathbed. She coughed, then continued stronger. But I saw everything, and I've decided that those who abandon family don't deserve to inherit family wealth. The ballroom was silent except for the hum of phones recording. So I'm leaving everything, the house, the business, the money, to the one who deserved it all along. Sarah and Emma, this is your justice. Marcus pulled out the official will, his voice carrying the weight of legal authority. Last will and testament of Dorothy Mitchell, executed 2 weeks before her passing, witnessed and notarized. He cleared his throat. To my granddaughter, Sarah Mitchell, I leave the family home at 47 Riverside Drive, valued at $1.2 million, to be her residence immediately upon my death. Mom gasped. That's our home. To my great-granddaughter, Emma Mitchell, Marcus continued, I establish a trust fund of $2 million for her education and future, accessible when she turns 18, managed by her mother, Sarah Mitchell, until that time. The Winstons were backing away from the head table like scandal was contagious. Furthermore, controlling interest in Mitchell Industries, founded with my late husband, passes to Sarah Mitchell. The current CEO, Robert Mitchell, is hereby removed from his position. This can't be legal, Dad shouted, his face purple. Marcus didn't pause. All personal effects, jewelry, and remaining liquid assets, approximately $500,000, also go to Sarah Mitchell, to be used at her discretion for her and Emma's benefit. Jessica started crying. What about me? Marcus looked up. To Jessica Mitchell, I leave $1, as she has already received a lifetime of advantages denied to her sister. The cruelty of that single dollar wasn't lost on anyone. Grandma knew exactly what she was doing. And finally, Marcus said, to Robert and Patricia Mitchell, I leave nothing but a choice, outlined in the next section. Dad lunged for the papers, but Marcus stepped back. Mr. Mitchell, would you like me to call the police, or will you let me finish? Marcus adjusted his glasses and read the final provision, each word dropping like a hammer. Robert and Patricia Mitchell may continue to reside in the family home under one condition. The room held its breath. Even the catering staff had stopped to listen. They must, within 30 days of this reading, publicly acknowledge Sarah Mitchell as their daughter and Emma Mitchell as their granddaughter. This acknowledgement must include a formal apology for the abandonment, to be published in the city newspaper and announced at a family gathering. Never, Dad spat. Then you have 30 days to vacate the premises, Marcus said simply. The choice is yours. Mom grabbed Dad's arm. Robert, the house... Furthermore, Marcus continued, any attempt to contest this will trigger an immediate eviction and forfeiture of all positions in Mitchell Industries, including Jessica's internship. Jessica's tears turned to sobs. Grandma, how could you? I spoke for the first time in minutes. She didn't abandon you, Jess. You still have parents. Emma had no one but me. Mrs. Winston stood up, her voice ice cold. Marcus, we're leaving. This engagement is over. Mother, wait. Marcus Winston started, but his father cut him off. No son of mine marries into a family that disowns children. Mr. Winston looked at my parents with disgust. You're exactly the kind of people we sought to avoid. The irony was perfect. In trying to appear perfect for the Winstons, my parents had revealed themselves as the opposite. 30 days, I said quietly to my parents. That's more notice than you gave me when I was 7 months pregnant. Dad's composure finally shattered completely. This can't be legal. She manipulated Mother when she was dying. Elder abuse. Marcus pulled out another document. 3 separate doctors confirmed Mrs. Mitchell's mental competency. Additionally, she recorded this video herself, with witnesses present. We'll sue, Mom cried, mascara streaming down her face. We'll fight this. You're welcome to try, Marcus replied calmly. But you should know that Mrs. Mitchell anticipated that. She set aside a legal fund specifically for Sarah to defend the will. You'll be fighting your mother's money with... Well, what exactly? The house is Sarah's. The business is Sarah's. Your bank accounts were primarily funded by the company. The reality hit them like a physical blow. Dad staggered, catching himself on a chair. You can't do this to your own parents, he gasped at me. I'm not doing anything, I replied evenly. Grandma did this. I'm just the beneficiary of her justice. But the company, I built that company, Dad protested. Marcus shook his head. You managed it, Mr. Mitchell. The seed money, the initial contracts, all came from Dorothy and her late husband. Your name isn't even on the founding documents." Around us, the guests were either filming or fleeing. Several society matrons whispered behind their hands, already spreading the gossip. By tomorrow, everyone in their social circle would know. "Please," Mom begged, turning to me. "Sarah, we're your parents." "No," I said, the words sharp and final. "You made it very clear 5 years ago that you weren't. You have 30 days to decide if you want to change that." Mr. Winston's voice boomed across the ballroom. "This engagement is terminated, effective immediately." "Dad, please." Marcus Jr. looked panicked. "Jessica didn't know." "She knew she had a sister," Mr. Winston cut him off. "She knew and lied. What else would she lie about?" Jessica stumbled toward them in her designer heels. "Marcus, please, we can work this out." "Work what out?" Mrs. Winston's voice dripped disdain. "That your family disowns daughters who don't fit their image? That you participated in erasing your own sister? What happens if we have a daughter who disappoints you?" Marcus Jr. pulled off the engagement ring from Jessica's shaking hand. "I can't marry someone who could do this to their own sister, to a child." The Winstons moved as a unit toward the exit, their entire extended family following. Other prominent families followed suit, the mass exodus looking like rats fleeing a sinking ship. "This is your fault!" Jessica screamed at me. "You ruined everything!" "No, Jess," I said quietly. "They ruined it 5 years ago. I just stopped hiding their mess." Dad tried one last desperate play, calling out to his business associates. "Gentlemen, this is a family matter." "Which you've made very public, Robert," Judge Harrison, one of Dad's golf buddies, replied coldly. "I think we've seen enough." Within minutes, the grand ballroom was nearly empty. 200 guests reduced to 20, mostly relatives too shocked to move and catering staff unsure if they should keep serving. The perfect engagement party had become the social disaster of the decade. Can you imagine the courage it took to stand up like that? After years of being erased, Sarah finally got justice. If you think families should never abandon their own children, give this video a thumbs up. And subscribe if you want more stories about people setting powerful boundaries. Now let's see what happened in the days that followed. I closed my manila envelope with steady hands, every movement deliberate and calm. The storm raged around me, but I was the eye, peaceful, untouchable. "Mr. Thompson," I said, "thank you for executing my grandmother's wishes so professionally." Marcus nodded, packing his briefcase with matching composure. "Your grandmother was very specific about her desires. I'm simply honoring them." I turned to my parents, who looked smaller somehow, diminished. "You'll receive the formal eviction notice tomorrow if you choose not to comply with Grandma's terms. 30 days is more than generous." "Sarah, wait." Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. "No touching, no contact. Those were your rules, remember?" I pulled out my business card, the one that read, "Sarah Mitchell, Attorney at Law, Family Practice." "If you decide to publicly acknowledge Emma and me, you can reach me through my office. Otherwise, all communication goes through Mr. Thompson." I looked at Jessica, mascara streaked and shaking. "Jess, you're 28 years old. Maybe it's time you learned to stand on your own feet. I did it at 27 with a baby. You can manage without a wedding." Dad found his voice one more time. "You won't get away with this." "With what? Inheriting what Grandma left me?" I picked up my purse. "That's not a crime, Robert. Abandoning your child, however, might interest family court if you ever try to claim grandparent rights." The threat landed perfectly. They'd lost everything: money, house, reputation, and any legal avenue to Emma. I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking confidently on the marble floor. "Have a lovely evening." By morning, the video had gone viral. "Business owner exposed for disowning daughter" ran across the local news. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation, and social media was brutal. My phone buzzed constantly with interview requests, but I declined them all. The video spoke for itself. Meanwhile, Dad's company phone rang off the hook. But those were cancellations, not congratulations. Mitchell Industries loses 3 major contracts, the Business Journal reported by Wednesday. Within a week, they'd lost 40% of their clients. Turns out, nobody wants to do business with people who abandon their own children. Mom's social standing evaporated overnight. The country club revoked her membership. The charity board she'd chaired for 10 years requested her resignation. The women who'd lunched with her for decades suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Mrs. Smith, my old neighbor who'd babysat Emma, called me laughing. "Saw your mother at the grocery store. She was buying generic brands and checking prices. Guess the credit cards got cut off." Marcus Thompson sent updates daily. "Your parents hired Brennan and Associates to contest the will. I filed our response. They don't have a leg to stand on. The family home utilities were transferred to my name. The company board voted to confirm my position as CEO, effective immediately. 20 years of Dad's empire building crumbled in 7 days. But the best part? Emma's school called. Ms. Mitchell, we've had several families reach out offering playdates. Seems everyone wants their kids to know Emma." My daughter, who'd been the girl without grandparents, was suddenly the most popular kid in 2nd grade. Karma worked faster than I'd expected. Day 10 post-party, Jessica called my office. My secretary almost didn't put her through, but something made me answer. "Sarah?" Her voice was small, different. "Can we talk?" "Are Mom and Dad with you?" "No, they forbade me from contacting you. I'm calling from a coffee shop." First rebellion. Interesting. "I'm listening, Jess. I should have stood up for you years ago." The words tumbled out. I was 23, scared, dependent on them for everything. But that's not an excuse. "No," I agreed. "It's not. I want to meet Emma, my niece. I want to know her, if you'll let me." I let the silence stretch, considering. What about Mom and Dad? They can make their own choices. I'm done letting them make mine. She paused. "I got a job, my first real job. The Winston connection is gone, the family name is mud, but a small firm hired me based on my actual resume." "Good for you." "Sarah, I know I don't deserve forgiveness." "You're right, you don't. But Emma deserves to know her aunt, if that aunt can be consistent and present. No disappearing when things get hard." "I won't, I promise." We arranged a meeting at a neutral location, a park where Emma liked to feed ducks. Baby steps toward something that might, eventually, become family. "Sarah?" Jessica said before hanging up. "Grandma would be proud of you. You became everything they said you couldn't be." "I know," I said simply. Because I did know. I'd proven them all wrong, and it felt like justice. Day 27, 3 days left before eviction. Marcus called me with updates. "Your parents' lawyers have tried everything," he reported. "Mental incompetence claim, rejected, undue influence, no evidence. They even tried claiming the will was forged." The forensic analyst laughed. "Are the eviction papers ready?" "Signed by a judge, ready to execute at 12:01 a.m. on day 31. But something was shifting. Mom had been spotted at the grocery store with red eyes. Dad's car was parked at the house, but he hadn't been seen at his usual haunts, the golf club, the office he no longer owned. Day 29 arrived gray and drizzling. At 4 p.m. my office phone rang. "Ms. Mitchell?" My secretary sounded uncertain. "Your Robert and Patricia Mitchell are here. They say they have an appointment?" They didn't, but I knew why they'd come. "Send them in." They looked older, smaller, defeated. Dad's suit hung loose. He'd lost weight. Mom's roots were showing, the first time I'd seen her natural gray. "We'll do it," Dad said without preamble. The public acknowledgement. The apology. "Why now?" I asked, genuinely curious. Mom answered, tears falling freely. "We've lost everything else. The house. It's all we have left of your grandmother. Of our life. Pride or a roof over your heads," I said. That's what it came down to? Dad nodded, unable to meet my eyes. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., press conference at the Marriott downtown. You'll read the statement Mr. Thompson prepares. No deviations, no excuses, full acknowledgement of Emma and me. They agreed to everything. Pride had finally become too expensive. The Marriott conference room was packed. Press, family members, and half of high society showed up to witness the Mitchell family's complete reversal. Dad stood at the podium, hands shaking as he unfolded Marcus's prepared statement. Mom stood beside him, aged 10 years in 30 days. We are here to publicly acknowledge our daughter, Sarah Mitchell, and our granddaughter, Emma Mitchell. His voice cracked on granddaughter. Flash bulbs popped. Reporters scribbled notes. 5 years ago, we made an unconscionable decision. We disowned Sarah for choosing to keep her child. We were wrong. We abandoned our daughter when she needed us most, denied our granddaughter a family, and lived a lie that hurt everyone. Mom stepped to the microphone. We apologized to Sarah and Emma for the pain we caused. We stole 5 years from them, from ourselves. We chose reputation over family, and we were catastrophically wrong. The apology felt forced, mechanical. They were reading words to keep their house, not speaking from their hearts. But it was enough for the legal requirements. We hope in time, Sarah and Emma might forgive us, Dad concluded. A reporter shouted, "Will you be part of Emma's life now?" I stood up from my seat in the back. That will be determined based on their future actions, not their words today. Every camera turned to me. They've met the legal requirements to maintain residence in the family home. Whether they meet the requirements to be grandparents remains to be seen. The conference ended with them leaving through the back door, avoiding questions. They'd kept their house but lost everything else. Sometimes that's what justice looks like. 2 weeks after the apology, I brought Emma to the house, her house now, technically. My parents waited in the living room like defendants awaiting sentencing. "Emma, these are your grandparents," I said simply. She studied them with those sharp 8-year-old eyes. "Why were you mean to Mommy?" The question hung in the air. Mom started crying. Dad cleared his throat but said nothing. "We made a mistake," Mom finally whispered. "A terrible mistake." "Mistakes are like spilling juice," Emma said. "This sounds bigger." From the mouths of babes. "You're right," Dad said, surprising me. "It was much bigger. We were wrong." Emma considered this. "Mommy says you can live in our house if you're nice now. Are you going to be nice?" "We'll try," Mom said. "Trying isn't doing," Emma replied, something I'd taught her. I set the boundaries clearly. Supervised visits only, once a month to start. You'll follow my rules regarding Emma. No gifts without permission. No undermining my parenting. No discussing the past unless Emma asks. Understood? They agreed to everything. The first visit was awkward, board games and stilted conversation. But Emma, with a child's capacity for living in the present, gradually warmed to them. Not as grandparents yet, just as older people who lived in Grandma Dorothy's house. "They seem sad," Emma told me after. "Maybe they learned their lesson?" "Maybe," I said. "Time will tell." And that's what we gave it. Time. Not forgiveness, not yet. But time for them to prove they could be different. For Emma's sake, I hoped they could. 6 months later, I stood in Grandma Dorothy's office, my office now, looking at the business she'd built. Mitchell Industries was thriving under my leadership. Turns out, treating employees like humans instead of expenses improved productivity. Who knew? I'd established the Dorothy Mitchell Foundation for single mothers pursuing education. 10 women were already enrolled, their children in the daycare I'd added to the office building. Emma loved visiting after school, doing homework while I finished meetings. Jessica came for dinner every Sunday. She'd kept her promise, showing up consistently, building a real relationship with Emma. She was still finding herself at 29, but weren't we all? My parents remained in the house, shadows of their former selves but slowly, maybe, becoming better people. Dad had taken up gardening. Grandma's roses had never looked better. Mom volunteered at a literacy program, teaching reading to adults. Grandma said you were strong, Mom told me during Emma's 9th birthday party. A small affair with Jessica, a few school friends, and yes, my parents. She said you'd survive us. She was right. She usually was, I agreed. The doorbell rang, Emma's friends arriving. As I watched my daughter laugh, surrounded by people who chose to love her, I thought about forgiveness. Not the kind that erases the past, but the kind that says, "You can't hurt me anymore." "Mommy," Emma called. "Come see what Aunt Jess brought." I joined my daughter, my sister, even my parents, in this imperfect but improving family. Grandma Dorothy's justice had given us all a second chance. What we did with it was up to us. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but sometimes it means moving forward anyway. Standing up to family is never easy, but sometimes it's necessary. Sarah's story shows that justice might be delayed, but it's not denied. What would you have done in her position? Share your thoughts below. If you have your own boundary-setting story, I'd love to hear it. Like this video if you believe in standing up for yourself, and subscribe for more stories of courage and justice. Until next time, remember, your worth isn't determined by anyone's approval.